everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is actually going to be my first book haul of 2020. I know it's been a bit since I've done one, and I don't know, I guess with all just like the favorites of the year videos in January, I've just kind of postponed filming it until now, so I've got a lot of books to share with you. So this includes like Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, things I bought with birthday gift cards. I've won a good number of giveaways since I've filmed last, so yeah. So there are a few books that I've accumulated and like haven't technically shown you, but I've finished them or I'm close to finishing them, so I think I'll probably just hold off on showing those since I've got a plethora of books to share with you anyway. I'll just talk about those in my February mid-month wrap-up, which will probably be up next week. So in some exciting news, I guess, before I jump into the actual book haul, Nerds of a Feather, which I'll leave linked down below, and they're actually like a Hugo Award finalist for the best fanzine. They put out their list of recommendations for the Hugo Awards, and under Best Fan Cast, I found out that I'm actually listed on there, so that was very exciting. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to say that and just talk about like how cool that is to like be deemed worthy of being nominated, I guess, for a Hugo Award. That's kind of huge, especially since my channel is still like fairly small in the grand scheme of things. So I'll leave a link down in the description to that particular post. Now we can jump into the book haul portion. So I'll start with, I guess, gifts from my best friend, because why not? So for Christmas, he got me the Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons. I think this is the 5th edition. We had been wanting to play D&D together over Skype or whatever, but yeah, so I'm excited to try it again. My fiance and I had tried playing, I don't know, like a year or so ago, and it just, I really struggle with being incredibly indecisive, so just like having this wide variety of options available, I mean, like you can literally do anything, but it's like, it was almost too much choice, if that makes sense, and so I just got like paralyzed by indecision and was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I'm hoping that playing it again, I can just like get more comfortable with making decisions and actually having fun. I don't know, but yeah, so that was kind of exciting. If anybody has any like D&D tips for starting out, like definitely let me know. So then for my birthday, he got me the deluxe edition of Fables book 1. So I don't entirely remember what all this is about, but I think it's like characters from fairy tales are actually real. So I guess these fairy tale characters are, it's like reborn as exiles in a magically camouflaged New York City neighborhood of Fabletown. So I know this is what like The Wolf Among Us, like Telltale Games is kind of based on. So I'm excited to actually read this, and like obviously this is a really awesome edition, so I am definitely looking forward to that. And then he also got me the first volume of Why the Last Man, and this is the same guy as Saga. So I am really excited about starting this. I have been kind of like thinking about reading it for a while now, so that was convenient that my best friend got me this. So this is kind of, I think, like a dystopian where everybody but this one guy and his pet monkey just die off. So obviously our main character is going to be pretty important for like continuing the human race. That's basically the extent of my knowledge there, but I'm excited to start it. So then I have a couple of Christmas gifts from my parents. Oh my god, the first one we'll talk about is this massive book that's really heavy. I think we weighed it and it's something like 7 or 8 pounds, so that was delightful to transport across the country. But yeah, so this is Game of Thrones, the costumes, and I talked about this before on my channel, but essentially, I mean, it's just like, kind of like behind the scenes of Game of Thrones, and obviously all about the costumes, so this is incredibly heavy. But yeah, so it's, you know, there's really awesome pictures, and like, just goes into the details of all the costumes and like why particular choices were made. So I love this sort of behind the scenes stuff, and costumes, like the costumes in Game of Thrones are really awesome. So I'm definitely excited to get into this, but like, yeah, it's gigantic. Another book that they got me was The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. So I've talked about this also before on my channel, but basically people in this world build ships out of dragon bones in order to fight an endless war. However, the dragons disappeared, and so people are still fighting, but obviously, like, they can't really build boats without dragon bones. So then the first dragon in centuries is spotted somewhere, so then everybody is like racing to get to that dragon, because it's kind of like, you know, a hot commodity and would kind of shape, I guess, the future of the wars between these people. I don't know. I've heard really great things about it, and I'm definitely excited to actually start it. So another book that Sarah from Sarah Hart's Books got me was Coldbrook by Tim Lebbon. So this is a horror novel about basically this secret facility that has like this lab called Coldbrook, and the scientists have created a gateway into a new world. The scientists actually release like a disease into the world instead of you know, like an excellent scientific discovery. It says billions are dead yet still walking, so I'm pretty sure this is a zombie book. I do vaguely remember that. I'm pretty sure I heard Rachel from the Shades of Orange talk about this, and that's why I had it on my wish list. That seems highly likely. But yeah, so it's like the only hope is a cure, and the only cure is genetic immunity. And there's only one person that can save the human race, but can they find her in time? So that sounds awesome. That sounds like something I'm really going to enjoy. So thanks again, Sarah. Okay, so I think those were all of like the actual gifts that people got me. I mean, obviously, like I picked up more books using, again, like Barnes & Noble gift cards. So then I picked up a couple of books from the Penguins Rewards program, and one of them was A River of Royal Blood, but the other, and I've already talked about that, obviously, but the other book I picked up was How to Hang a Witch by Adriana Mather. So this is something to do with the Salem witch trials. So I think our main character moves to Salem, and she is the descendant of the guy who, like, started the Salem witch trials. She's targeted by a group of girls known as the Descendants. They were the descendants of these accused witches who were put on trial. So then our main character is apparently the center of a centuries-old curse, and there's some sort of ghost, and she will have to work with the descendants and prove her own innocence in order to stop some sort of cycle of evil. And it's like, does anyone actually care if she's innocent, or is Salem's deadly history destined to repeat itself? So I've heard pretty good things about this, and I got it for free, so you know, that's always nice. But yeah, I'm excited to read this. The second book, I think, maybe fairly recently came out, and that has something to do with the Titanic. So I'm hoping that, like, you know, I enjoy this, so then I can also read that book as well, because I do find the Titanic pretty fascinating. So, you know, hopefully this will be a good series. All right, so then I think we'll go into some of the books that I've bought for myself, because, you know, why not, whatever. The first book I'll talk about here is Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, but an Introvert's Story by Debbie Tung. So this is the same author / illustrator who did Book Love that I talked about in January, I think. So this is, you know, the same sort of like adorable comics, and I think it's just, you know, exploring life as an introvert, which of course, you know, I'm pretty introverted myself, so I think I will probably highly relate to many of these comics here, and I think it's just going to be another cute, adorable little comic series. The next book I'll talk about is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So this is a romance where our main character is a chronically ill computer geek who basically like has a near-death experience and kind of wants to, has created this like bucket list to live her life to the fullest, basically. So like, she has already completed the first, which is finally moving out of her glamorous family's mansion. The next items are enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. Or she hires a guy to help her complete all these items on this list, and he is a handyman with tattoos, a motorcycle, and is like really hot. So it's a romance. I think we can all probably guess what's going to happen, but I've heard really great things about it, and I'm just excited to finally read it. I picked this up on Amazon, had like a buy two, get one free sort of deal, so I think I got this one, Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, and then Logan and Moonlight, which I will just talk about right now. So this is by Isabel Ibanez. This is a YA fantasy based on Bolivian politics and history, I think. So in this, our main character is like a decoy princess, I think, essentially. And yeah, it's like a stand-in for the last remaining royal of her people, but some sort of usurper has come in and used an ancient relic to summon ghosts and drive her people from like La Ciudad, so the city. Then our main character is wanting revenge and has some sort of ability to spin thread from moonlight, so that's kind of cool. But this usurper is demanding the real Condessa's hand in marriage. It's our main character's duty to go in her stead. She's using her weaving ability to hide messages and tapestries for the resistance, and then we have some sort of mass vigilante and healer and whatnot. So we've got, I think, a group of people coming together to rebel, and our main character may have to make some choices about, like, you know, does she pursue revenge or what exactly? But I've heard pretty good things about it, and I mean, this cover is really awesome. I like this sort of setting. I think it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, so hopefully it's good. The next book I'll talk about is the book that came in my January Adult Unplugged book box. So that is Are We Nearly There Yet by Lucy Vine. So I hadn't actually heard of this one, but it seems like a rom-com contemporary type book that actually sounds pretty amusing. So our main character is turning 30 and is kind of like stuck in a rut. Basically all of her friends are kind of settling down, and she is still working as a temp, trying and failing not to shag her terrible ex, and then is like getting thrown out of clubs and accidentally sexting her boss. So she goes on this worldwide adventure to hashtag find the fun and find herself. So I think she ends up in Thailand, and I think is just like trying to find her way in life. But this sounds pretty amusing. I'm hoping that it's actually going to be fairly entertaining and enjoyable, so we'll see. The next book I'll talk about is Fate of the Fallen by Kade. So this is an adult fantasy. I think the pitch is like Lord of the Rings, if Frodo were to have died and we're following Sam instead. I think that's right. So it's like, so everybody loves like the hero, the Frodo character, but he discovers it's his destiny to save the world and brings his best friend along for the ride. So it's like saving the world really isn't all that easy. And people start to believe that their best chance of survival is to surrender to the forces of evil, which is obviously not how like this prophecy goes. I thought this was focused on the friend, like the not the hero character, like the secondary hero helper character. But I've heard good things about it, and it was half off, so I picked it up. So the next book I'll talk about is Game of Thrones, A Guide to Westeros and Beyond. So this is... okay. Well, there's the cover. I didn't realize that this was just like a weird little thingy on the front. So this is, again, one of those like behind the scenes type books, and this like explores all 8 seasons, I believe. It says something about infographics, timelines, photography, insightful essays, and just kind of more about the world. I mean, like, obviously I've watched the show and read the books, so like, you know, I don't know how helpful this will really be to me, but this was half off, and I, again, really like these behind the scenes type things, so I'm hoping that this is kind of explores more of that instead of like, you know, literally being like, oh, this is this person, etc. But we will find out. The next book I picked up that I'll talk about is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. So this is one of the ones that I was like kind of undecided about reading, but you know, like I went ahead and got it because I'm going to do a buddy read for that. This is based on Korean mythology, and our main character is a 9-tailed fox who like lives off of consuming the life force of men. So our main character kind of only targets like really terrible people. She ends up being attacked by a goblin in the woods and reveals herself to save this boy from being killed. And in the process, she basically loses her fox speed, which is kind of her soul, I think. So without it, she's going to die. But so I think there's some sort of like school setting where our two main characters kind of like meet up again and like sparks fly. And so she's like trying to restore her fox speed, and there's some sort of generations old feud, so she has to choose between her immortal life and this boy's. So I've heard it's like very kind of like heavily inspired by K-drama type things. Yeah, I'm hoping that like the drama will be enjoyable and not just like completely over the top, which like that's totally fine if it's over the top and enjoyable, but if it's not entertaining, then, you know, like we'll see how how that goes. But yeah, I'm hopeful that I'll like it. It's like an urban fantasy, so we all know how much I love urban fantasy. So yeah, I don't know that much about Korean mythology, so I'm excited to give this one a shot. The next book I'll talk about that I picked up is The Golden Grape by Erin Lindsey. So this is the sequel to Murder on Millionaire's Row, which I read in October or November, something like that. It's set in like Gilded Age, New York, and our main character is the like housemaid, and in the first book her employer goes missing, and so she has to find him, and along the way there's like a whole bunch of ghosts and paranormal things going on. So this one, we follow more of this special branch of the Pinkerton agency, so you know, it's like paranormal investigators. There's a new case where 6 politicians have been murdered, and the police have like no clue what's going on. So then the killer's next target is Teddy Roosevelt. Our main character is like, you know, hunting down the murderer before Roosevelt gets killed. So I think, you know, we're going to have more fun paranormal investigations, and I'm definitely excited for that. Murder on Millionaires Row was like a kind of a surprise for me, just how much I enjoyed it. So I'm definitely excited to pick this one up. Next book I'll talk about is Steel Crow Saga by Paul Krueger. So basically sets it up here, you know, Pokemon combined with Avatar: The Last Airbender. So we've got 4 different people, I think, who come together and are trying to defeat an unstoppable killer who defies the laws of magic. So we've got basically like a soldier, a prince, a detective, and a thief. But yeah, so I've heard really great things. I love magical animal companions, and we've got some like enchanted weapons, I think, going on here. So yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to actually like finally starting it. Yeah, like I said, I've heard really excellent things about it, and you know, I'm a big fan of Pokemon, so that's going to be awesome. You know, surprisingly, I haven't actually watched any Avatar: The Last Airbender. I feel like that's something I would enjoy, though, and perhaps I should actually watch it, but that's kind of like, I digress. So the next book I'll talk about is Burn the Dark by S.A. Hunt. So I talked about this in my January releases video, but this is basically the book where we follow our main character, who's a YouTube celebrity. In her YouTube videos, it's like a realistic witch hunter series, but it's not actually fake. So she's hunting down real witches. And then she's like looking to seek revenge against a group of witches who sentenced her mother to a fate worse than death. So she goes back home and like teams up with some people. And then there's some sort of like mysterious threat known as the Red Lord, who is, I think, this creepy entity in the background here. I'm definitely excited to read this. Obviously, like, you know, I featured it in my January releases video, and it sounds awesome. I've heard pretty good things about it, so I'm excited to see how I enjoy it. The next book I'll talk about is The Queen in Hiding by Sarah Kozloff. So this is the first book in that series where we've got like one book coming out per month. So I think the second one comes out, I want to say towards the end of February. So like, assuming that I like this, I will probably pick that up. I think the main tagline on the back of the book is like the ultimate fantasy for fantasy fans. Binge an entire series. So our main character is orphaned, exiled, and hunted, and has to like master the magic that is her birthright. She becomes a guerrilla fighter, and like she has to like win the favor of the spirits that interfere with mortal affairs, and like team up with a group of people and, you know, lead a rebellion. So I've heard really great things about it, and I'm really intrigued by this release schedule. The next book I'll talk about is Angel Mage by Garth. So I had mentioned this in like, I think is my October releases video. This is, I want to say, a standalone. I'm not completely sure on that. So we follow a group of people who are, I think, kind of like recruited by this person who is like the greatest practitioner of angelic magic. So like basically they can summon angels and force them to do their bidding. This lady, I think, is trying to like get back her long lost love, and like makes these people fight to do that. There's some sort of plague element. It's like some sort of ash blood plague, or these people were transformed into beastlings, and so she led survivors into a nearby country, and then eventually, I guess, learns that angels shun the people of this country's descendants, and if they're touched by angelic magic, their blood turns to ash. So that's kind of not great. I do like Garth Nix, and I'm excited to read this one, and hopefully, you know, it's like kind of a darker type fantasy. It sounds that way, so, you know, we'll see. The next book I'll talk about is Magnolia Sword by Shari Thomas. So this is just a straight up retelling of Mulan's. I mean, that's it. That's what it is. You know, so she's going to disguise herself, go in her father's place to fight these invaders, and she's chosen for an elite team under the Royal Duke's son. Speaking of Mulan, I'm kind of intrigued by that live-action Disney movie. Some of those have been kind of hit or miss. Like, I enjoyed the Jungle Book one, and I did like Beauty and the Beast. The live-action Aladdin was just okay. Like, it was fine, but I think, you know, it's kind of hard to beat the original animated movies just in general, but I do think the new Mulan one looks pretty good, so I'm hoping that it gets good reviews, because I do really enjoy Mulan. The next book I'll talk about is Girls with Storm and Shadow by Natasha and Tung. So this is the sequel to Girls with Paper and Fire, which was essentially like The Demon King kind of chooses consorts and from these less like lower class of people, and our main character is chosen. We follow our main character, obviously, as she like continues to lead a rebellion, I think, and there's some sort of heavy bounty on our main character's head and various like traumatic events going on. And then there's some sort of dark magic plot to eliminate the rebels. Yeah, so I enjoyed Girls of Paper and Fire, and I'm definitely curious to see how the story continues. So then I picked up some used books using some store credit that I had. And the first one I'll talk about is The Couple Next Door by Shari Lapena. So this is a thriller. Our main characters are at a dinner party next door and some sort of crime is committed, and suspicion, I think, falls on these people. But then I guess our detective knows that this couple is hiding something inside their house, and everybody is keeping secrets. So, I mean, that's a very vague summary, but it's a thriller, so it's probably best to not know that much going into it. But I read An Unwanted Guest in November, I think, and definitely enjoyed that, so I'm excited to check out these other books. And, you know, the next one I'll talk about here is A Stranger in the House, also by Shari Lapena. Our main character, I think, gets in some sort of accident. Police suspect that she's up to no good. Her husband refuses to believe it, and her best friend's not really sure, and our main character, like, doesn't even know what to believe, and I think maybe can't remember all that much about what happened. She realizes something in her house has been moved, someone's been there, and everyone's a stranger, everyone has a secret, and yeah, that sounds creepy and awesome, so we will see how I enjoy these other two books by her. The next book I'll talk about is The Fixer by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. For some reason, the like politicians and whatnot in Washington, D.C. if they have problems that can't be solved, they go to this family, and our main character is 16 years old and is like goes to stay with her older sister. If these powerful people need like someone to disappear or like, you know, need to take care of scandals or whatever, like they, I guess, hire her sister. So then she enrolls at some sort of like prestigious school and basically becomes the school's high school fixer. And I guess there's like some sort of conspiracy that travels from that is not only in the high school but also like the capital itself. I don't know what kind of scandal that would be, but we will find out. And it's like suddenly there's much more on the line than good grades, money, or politics. And yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed some of Jennifer Lynn Barnes' books before, so I hope that this will be an entertaining series. The next book I'll talk about, I actually picked up the other day because I was waiting on my bus that was half an hour late. And thankfully, I was at a different stop than I usually am, but they have like one of those pop-up library type things where I think people can just like, you know, it's like you can leave a book, take a book, whatever. So I found this and I was like, that looks good. I'll just pick that up while I'm waiting. So that's Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. So this is, I think, a thriller where our main character as a teenager had some sort of like public humiliation, and she kind of reinvents herself to live this perfect life. So that we're following her years later, I think. And it's like something buried in her past still haunts her. She has to determine if she's going to protect the scandalous truth or what exactly, and possibly ruin her life. I don't know. It's a thriller, so that's extremely vague, but I think I've seen pretty good reviews about it, so we will see. I, again, picked it up for free, so like I'm not really all that concerned. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I don't need to worry about that all that much. All right, so then we get into a large pile of giveaways that I've won, and most of these are from Goodreads, but I did win at least one through Twitter. We'll talk about the one that I didn't win through Goodreads first. So that is We Read the Storm by Devin Madsen. So this goes on sale in June. So this was a very exciting Twitter giveaway that I won, and I can't wait to read it. So this is the first in, I think, a 7-book series. So it's like 17 years after rebels storm the streets. The country is still pretty divided, I guess, but some sort of god emperor is holding the empire together. And then there's a betrayal, and that kind of, I think, destroys political relationships with the neighboring country. And it's like, as an empire dies, 3 warriors will rise. They will ride the storm or drown in its blood. So yeah, we've got a warrior, an assassin, and a princess. So that sounds great. This, I think, was self-published, but had been recently obviously picked up by Orbit. So yeah, the cover is awesome. I love the premise, and I am just very excited to actually read it. The next book I'll talk about is Highland Captive by Hannah Howell. So never actually read one of these types of romances before, but I want it, so we're gonna see how that goes for me. I think our main character is abducted by a feuding clan, and is right to fear for her life and her virtue. Ooh. And her keeper is an infamous warrior, and they, I guess, she wants to hate him, but of course he's more honorable and alluring than she expected. She's technically betrothed to somebody else, and of course ends up being attracted to our main dude, I'm sure. Our main guy knows well his reputation as a fierce warrior. He uses it to claim land and lovers. But our beautiful main character is a different type of conquest. Oh god, that sounds really funny. Okay, so we've got some forbidden passion, and this could possibly start an unstoppable blood feud, or forever fill their hearts. I really don't know how I'll do with this type of romance. It sounds entertaining. I like Scotland, so we will see. Next book I'll talk about is Mother Knows Best by Kira Pickoff, I think. So this is a thriller, I believe, and oh goodness, our main character passed on some sort of genetic mutation that killed her son, so that's kind of sad. She wants a second chance to be a mother, and is like, okay, we're going to create the world's first baby with 3 genetic parents. That's interesting. It was an illegal experiment. I think somebody gets arrested, and then the other 2 people end up escaping, and then we follow, I guess 10 years later, we follow the daughter of these people, and is kind of like, oh goodness, the woman who was put in jail, I think, comes back and is like not too happy about things that have happened, and yeah. So it's a psychological thriller. We'll just leave it at that, like a very vague premise. Sounds good. The next book I'll talk about is The Woman in the Mirror by Rebecca James. So this is on sale next month, it looks like. It looks like we may have 2 separate timelines here. And so in the 1947, our main character, I guess, in this time period is a governess. And she is hired to look after the twins of this captain. Strange things start happening, like the twins start being evil, and the father is like spiteful and cruel, and the manor itself that they live in is starting to lash out. So that sounds, kind of like a malevolent house. And then in present day New York, an art gallery curator has learned that she's a descendant of these people and heir to this possibly haunted house. I don't know if there's actually a supernatural element, or if I'm just like, reading that into what the premise here. I certainly hope that we do get some supernatural bits, but we will see. The next book I'll talk about is No Bad Deed by Heather Chavez. This comes out later this month, it looks like, and this is some sort of thriller where a mother is trying to find connections between her missing husband and a deadly stalker that knows about her family's history. That is literally all it says on the back. So, yeah, that's short. I don't really entirely remember much else other than what's on the back of the book. So, yeah, hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's a good thriller. The next book I'll talk about is Divided Loyalty by Charles Todd. So this is an Inspector Ian Rutledge mystery, and I've never read any of these books before. I think this is something like book 22 in this series. So, hopefully it won't be that bad that I'm just kind of jumping in and having absolutely no idea what's going on. So our main character is a Scotland Yard detective and is hired to is assigned to a cold murder case with an unidentified victim. A young woman has been murdered near Stonehenge, and the killer has simply vanished. That's basically, I think, all we need to know going into it. Murder mystery. I suspect with this murder mystery type thing, it will not be like the end of the world that I'm jumping in so far into the series. I'm sure that there's going to be background stuff that I'm going to miss, but I don't know. Generally, I think mysteries are kind of more self-contained. So we'll see how this goes. I'm always up for a good mystery, and this could be an interesting series. The next book I'll talk about is Pretty as a Picture by Elizabeth Little. So this comes out also at the end of this month. Interesting. Okay. So our main character is a film editor. So she's going off the coast of Delaware to a small island to work with like a famous movie director. Weird things start happening on the set. There's like accidents, indiscretions, scandals, whatever. Half the crew has been fired, the other half wants to quit. I guess she meets the teenage girls who are determined to solve the real-life murder that is like the basis of the movie. And so she gets drawn into the investigation. Oh shit, but the killer may still be on the loose. So yeah, thriller, that sounds interesting. The next book that I'll talk about is Welcome to the Pineaway Motel and Cabins by Katarina Bivold. Should have looked that up, but I didn't. So our Pine Creek Motel has seen better days. Our main character, I think, has actually died. Okay. It's like the funeral is over, her body is buried, and the last casserole dish is empty, but she's still hanging around. So she, like, has one last opportunity to help her friends discover the happiness they once knew before they lose the motel and cabins. So that's kind of adorable sounding. I mean, obviously, that's not great that our main character is dead, but I think that'll be interesting to follow a ghost, and the like setting sounds really interesting, and it's like a charming tale of a ramshackle roadside motel, a heartwarming story of love, friendship, community, and the art of living even when it's already too late. So, I mean, despite the whole main character being dead thing, I think it should be a fairly happy book. We'll find out. The next book I'll talk about is The Murderous Relations by Deanna Rayborn. So this comes out in March, and this is the, I think, 5th book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series, and I've talked about that before on my channel, and I do really enjoy this series, so I was excited to see that I had won, this book. Interestingly enough, one of the very first giveaways I won was for the 3rd book in this series, so I feel like that's kind of exciting that I've won another one for this series. But basically, I'm pretty sure they are going to be dealing with Jack the Ripper, which is awesome. So our main character, Veronica, and Stoker, who are like our investigators, are apparently going undercover at a brothel. So, they're, I think, trying to solve the murder at this brothel while also dealing somehow with Jack the Ripper. But yeah, so I'm very excited that I won this. I do very much enjoy the series, and I'm hopeful that this next installment will be equally as delightful. Alright, so the last of the giveaways that I won is Happy and You Know It by Laura Hankins. It's a dark and witty page-turner about a struggling young musician who is singing for some overprivileged babies and their cool moms. So I think our main character is kind of getting drawn into, like, this socialite type life. We've got, like, a variety of different people here. There's, one of the moms, I think, is on the brink of a social media stardom, is trying to keep her life together. We've got a stay-at-home mom who is struggling to embrace her new identity, I think because she's becoming a stay-at-home mom. And then we've got someone who comes from, like, old money, who is apparently never misses an opportunity to dole out parenting advice, and there's secrets and betrayals. So this comes out in May. I don't know, it sounds pretty enjoyable. I think it's always interesting to read books that are kind of like, behind the scenes of social media, because like, obviously social media is kind of curated to be like the best of everything, and it's kind of hard to tell sometimes if people are having issues underneath that, despite, like presenting a perfect front, I guess. The last book that I'll talk about, I actually received for a review from the author. So that's Post-Apocalyptic Paradise by Alistarius Black. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. But this, I think, is like a dystopian sci-fi type book. We've got an oppressed society, a cybernetic arm, and a hopeless young man on the last legs of his sanity and I think he's trying to uncover some secrets of his past. So I think there are some trigger warnings for a lot of things, and I think it's supposed to explore mental health, which I find really interesting. So we've got like a radiated wasteland, and our main character has no memory of his childhood, and he has kind of turned mute, I guess, because he has nobody to talk to. He loses an arm fighting against a mutant, and I guess he ends up getting some sort of like mechanical prosthetic, and another human has done this surgery. I seem to remember I had seen some sort of review that mentioned something about zombies, I think, so I'm curious to see how all of this fits together into a story. It was a lot of books, and so I did thankfully win a lot of these in giveaways, so that's exciting. And like I got some for as gifts, and picked them up with like various credit and gift cards and whatnot. But I've clearly got a lot of excellent books here, and I'm very excited to read all of them, of course. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and think I should like prioritize them. Let me know if you think you're gonna pick any of these books up, or just like generally have thoughts you want to share about, you know, anything that I've mentioned here. I hope you're having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here and see you in the next one.